Hey guys, tonight you find yourself beneath the low arch of a walled town at dusk, where cold stone sweats under your palm, damp straw clings to your boots, and smoke curls thickly in the rafters of the gatehouse like a tired old ghost refusing to leave. The bells of a nearby monastery toll through river mist, slow and hollow, while horses breathe clouds into the winter air and torchlight trembles over mud. Barrels, iron hinges, and the suspicious puddles no one wishes to name. Medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience, though to be fair, most brochures are hard to print when half the scribes are arguing over ink and the other half are freezing. You pull your cloak tighter, and there comes the gentle reality check. You probably would not last a week out here, not with the cold, the smells, the fleas, and the cheerful confidence of people who call turnip soup a blessing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And, as the town gate groans shut behind you, leave a comment telling where you're listening from and what the local time is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through the gate just as the watchman lowers the bar across the oak doors, and the sound of it lands behind you like the closing of a heavy book. The town gathers itself inward for the night. Little windows glow under sagging roofs. Rainwater slips from thatch and tile into gutters of blackened wood. Somewhere a woman scolds a goat with the weary tone of one who has lost the same argument every evening for years. Somewhere else, a child coughs behind a shutter, and a dog with one torn ear decides, without consulting you, that you're now part of its business. The street beneath your feet is not so much a road as a patient mixture of mud, straw, dung, spilled ale, ash, and all the unromantic truth that songs tend to skip. You follow the bend of it toward the inn-yard, where lanterns swing in the mist and a painted sign creaks above the door. The sign shows a blue mattress and 3 golden feathers, though the mattress is painted much cleaner than any mattress you're likely to meet tonight. No one can quite agree whether the painter meant to promise comfort or merely warn travellers what they were about to risk. Inside the yard, carts stand wheel-deep in muck, chickens sleep badly in a coop beside the stable, a pack-horse stamps and rattles its harness. Near the wall, bundles of rushes lie stacked for the floors, still greenish from the marsh, giving off a wet, sweet, earthy smell that almost hides the sharper scent beneath it. Almost. The innkeeper's boy carries an armful into the hall, scattering stalks across the stones to soak up the day's filth. This is considered good housekeeping. It is also, if you listen to the muttering of an old carter by the door, considered an invitation to every flea between here and Candlemas. You duck beneath the lintel and enter the hall. Warmth touches your face, not clean warmth, but human warmth, smoky, woolly, greasy, alive. The fire burns low under soot-black rafters. Benches crowd the walls. A pot of pottage sighs over the coals, thick with onions, barley, and whatever root the cook trusts least. Men and women sit shoulder to shoulder, drinking thin ale from wooden cups, tearing coarse bread, dipping it into bowls, and speaking softly as though night itself has ears. A few pilgrims rest near the hearth, their badges pinned to cloaks little pewter shells, a saint's hand, a tiny shrine, all shining in the firelight like promises that may or may not have been kept. You are tired enough to trust almost anything that calls itself a bed. That is how the trouble begins. The innkeeper, a broad woman with sleeves rolled to the elbow and an iron keyring at her belt, studies you as if weighing your bones for resale. Then she nods toward the far corner, where a low frame has been laid with old straw, rushes, and a brown wool blanket so patched it resembles a map of kingdoms that wisely chose not to unite. Beside it hangs a curtain of rough cloth, meant to grant privacy, though it trembles each time someone walks past and offers all the secrecy of a gossiping monk. There's room, she says. There is indeed room, if one uses the word kindly. You cross the hall, stepping over a sleeping hound, a cracked bucket, and a pilgrim's staff wrapped with red thread against bad luck. Some swear that red thread keeps away night terrors, cramps, and creeping things. Others swear it only makes the creeping things easier to notice. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the charm fails, or whether people simply expect too much from string. You sit on the edge of the bed and feel the straw sigh beneath you. It is damp, not soaking, not newly rained upon, but holding the deep, stubborn dampness of something used by many bodies, warmed, cooled, turned, and used again. The rushes crackle. A faint smell rises: hay, smoke, wool, sweat, and the sour little memory of old sickness. You tell yourself it is only the smell of travel. Travellers are very generous with excuses when they are tired. On the wall above the pallet, a beeswax candle burns in an iron bracket, its flame bending whenever the door opens. Beeswax is dearer than tallow, and the innkeeper clearly wishes everyone to notice this improvement in civilization. The candle gives a sweet scent, soft and golden, but below it the blanket has a darker life. You touch the wool. It is thick, warm, and faintly sticky in places where hands have gripped it during cold nights. There are tiny pale flecks caught in the weave, ash. You hope, bran, perhaps, something from the rushes, something harmless. The dog with the torn ear appears at your feet and looks at the blanket with grave professional concern. You too, you whisper. The dog sneezes. Around you, the hall settles. A merchant counts coins under his cloak, lips moving. A woman with a basket of smoked fish asks for hot water and receives ale instead, because hot water is apparently a luxury, but lukewarm disappointment is plentiful. An ink-stained scribe near the hearth carefully wraps his writing tablets in cloth before sleeping, protecting them from damp more tenderly than anyone here protects their spine. Above the fire, herbs hang from a beam: rosemary, rue, lavender, wormwood. The innkeeper says they sweeten the air and discourage vermin. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the vermin are discouraged, but the customers are at least comforted, and comfort is cheaper than proof. You lie back. The first truth of such bedding is that it remembers everyone. The straw remembers the carter who arrived last week with rain in his beard. The rushes remember the pilgrim who shook dust from his cloak and blessed the mattress before climbing in. The blanket remembers fever, winter, road sweat, spilled broth, and the small nightly wars of scratching fingers beneath wool. In later centuries, in great crowded cities full of coal smoke and narrow rooms, people will dream of soft Victorian beds with iron frames, stuffed mattresses, lace pillows, and thick curtains drawn against the fog. They will imagine progress has saved them from the old hall, the straw, the fleas, the damp. But bedding has always been clever. It changes its clothes, it learns new houses, it hides in seams instead of rushes, in ticking instead of thatch, behind wallpaper, under buttons, inside folds where candlelight cannot reach. Here, in this medieval hall, you begin to understand the older root of that horror. A bed is never only a bed. It is a little country with borders, inhabitants, weather, customs, and disputes over territory. Something moves near your ankle. You become very still. It may be a straw end bending under your weight. It may be the brush of wool. It may be one of the tiny citizens of the bedstead coming to inspect the newcomer, perhaps with the solemn authority of a manor court official collecting tolls. You shift your foot. The movement stops. Then, after a breath, it begins again. Across the hall, the monastery bell marks the hour, faint through the walls. The sound slips into the rafters and softens there. One by one, voices thin into murmurs. The fire settles. The candle above you gutters, leaving the patched blanket darker than before. The dog turns 3 circles and lies down near your boots, as if guarding you, or possibly waiting to see what abandons ship. You pull the borrowed wool up to your chin because cold is less theoretical than fleas. The blanket smells of wet sheep and wood smoke. Your hands are cold. Your boots ache. Your eyelids lower despite your better judgment. Outside, the gate is barred. The river mist presses against the walls, and the town breathes in its sleep. Beneath you, the straw rustles softly. The straw keeps whispering beneath you long after the hall has grown quiet, and for a while you pretend that every small movement belongs to the fire settling, the dog dreaming, or your own tired bones shifting under the patched wool. This is one of the great skills of the traveller explaining away discomfort until morning proves you foolish. The candle above you burns lower, its beeswax sweetness thinning into smoke, and the monastery bell beyond the walls marks another hour with that slow, patient sound that seems less like time passing and more like time being folded away. Then someone lifts the curtain. You open one eye. A man in a rain-dark cloak peers in with the gloomy confidence of a person who has been told there is room. Behind him stands another traveller, and behind that one a third, each carrying a bundle, a smell of wet wool, and the exhausted hope that tonight will not be the night they sleep upright beside a barrel. The innkeeper's voice comes from somewhere behind them, calm as a judge at manor court. Shift along, and so you shift. There is no drama in it, only the slow, awkward shuffle of bodies in the dark. Knees fold, elbows apologize without words. Someone's satchel presses against your ribs. Someone else keeps his boots on, which feels like a crime but is, in truth, a very practical defence against cold floors, missing footwear, and whatever may be considering a life inside the bedding. By the time everyone settles, the bed has become less a resting place and more a poorly planned siege formation. There are 6 of you on the mattress, or perhaps 5.5, depending on whether the thin pilgrim near the wall counts as a full sleeper, or merely a collection of bones wrapped in cloak. No one can quite agree whether crowded sleeping keeps people warmer, or simply allows misery to travel more efficiently from one person to another. Tonight, it appears determined to do both. The alehouse breathes around you. The rafters hold their black soot like old secrets. Rushes lie thick over the stones. Changed that evening, but not exactly fresh, for even fresh rushes arrive already carrying the wet memory of marshes, birds, and small unseen things. Near the hearth, a pot is pulled aside from the coals, and the last skin of pottage tightens on its surface. A trencher sits abandoned on a bench, soaked with gravy and gnawed at the edge by either a child, a rat, or a very rude saint. The ale smells sour, the smoke hangs low, and the dog with the torn ear has somehow gained the best position near your feet, proving that animals understand inns better than people do. The man beside you mutters a prayer to St. Julian, patron of travellers, then scratches his shoulder with such force that the whole mattress trembles. Fleas whispers the pilgrim. Only if they are honest, says the man. The dishonest ones bite first. It is not a comforting theology. You lie still, trying to make yourself narrow. In this hall, sleeping is not private. It is a communal craft. practiced by necessity and endured by habit. People share beds with kin, strangers, servants, apprentices, merchants, and anyone else who can pay a coin or bargain with a bundle of smoked fish. A bed is expensive. A mattress is labour. Wool blankets are wealth. Even straw, when winter bites and fields lie locked under frost, is not to be wasted on one delicate spine. The rich may speak of chambers and curtains, but here comfort is measured by whether the roof leaks directly onto your face or merely nearby. The mattress dips. A sleeper turns. Warmth presses against your side, damp and human. You smell onions on someone's breath, horse on another's cloak, and under all of it the wool blanket's old sourness rising whenever the heat of 6 bodies wakes it. Suspiciously warm wool is a thing to distrust. It seems kind at first, wrapping around your shoulders like a grandmotherly blessing, but soon you remember that warmth is exactly what many tiny creatures also enjoy: medieval hospitality. Come for the shelter, stay because the fleas have formed a family attachment. Some swear that placing pennyroyal or wormwood beneath the bedding keeps the biting things away. The innkeeper has tucked herbs into the straw near the bed frame, and now, as you shift your cheek against your sleeve, you catch their bitter scent. It might be working. It might also be seasoning you. Even now, it's hard to tell whether the old remedies protect sleepers or simply make them smell less surprised when they wake scratched raw. A carter once told you that fleas dislike the smoke of burned leather. A monk told you that cleanliness is next to godliness, though he said this while wearing robes that had known several damp seasons. A shepherd swore that hanging a horseshoe above the bed helps against night pests, bad dreams, and jealous neighbours. This seems like asking a great deal from a bent piece of iron, but people in cold places learn to hope efficiently. The man at your left begins to snore in careful little bursts, like a pig trying not to draw attention. Across the room, another sleeper coughs, then spits into the rushes. No one complains. The rushes are there to receive such offerings, along with spilled ale, grease, mud, and the ordinary ruins of daily life. In the morning, if the innkeeper is diligent or feeling watched by God, the worst of them will be swept out with a birch broom. If she is not, fresh rushes will be thrown over old. A soft green coverlet for yesterday's sins. Your thoughts drift, slow and strange, toward those future beds people will someday praise as civilized. Deep mattresses in narrow Victorian rooms, feather bolsters, heavy drapes, upholstered headboards, iron frames that lift the sleeper from the floor but do not lift the sleeper from the habits of dirt, crowding, damp, and denial. The horror does not begin with polish and lace. It begins here, in the warm dark, when bedding is too valuable to wash often, too difficult to dry, too shared to be truly yours, and too comforting to refuse even when it plainly has a history. A flea announces itself behind your knee. You resist the urge to thrash. The etiquette of the shared bed is delicate. One person's scratch becomes another person's bruise. Instead, you bend your leg slowly, with the grace of a court dancer and the dignity of a sack of turnips. The flea, if it is a flea, escapes judgment. The pilgrim near the wall sighs in his sleep and murmurs something about relics. The merchant clutches his purse beneath his tunic. The dog thumps its tail once, perhaps amused. The rain begins again outside, soft at first, then steadier on the roof. Water runs down the shutters. The hall darkens as the candle fails, leaving only the red eye of the hearth. 6 bodies breathe under one blanket, uneasy but warmer than before. You feel the scratch of straw through the ticking, the press of a stranger's shoulder, the ache in your hips where the mattress has gone hollow. Yet drowsiness comes all the same, merciful and heavy. The body, humble creature, will accept almost any treaty if sleep is offered. Just before you drift under, the man beside you scratches again, and in the dark he whispers. At least it is not the stable. No one answers. Everyone silently agrees this is optimism of the highest order. Morning comes not with brightness, but with a grey loosening of the dark, as if the sky itself has slept poorly and now regrets the bargain. The fire in the alehouse has fallen to a red heap. The rushes smell sharper than they did by candlelight, and the 6 of you unweave yourselves from the bed with the stiff politeness of people who have shared far too much warmth and far too little trust. The man who snored like a cautious pig cannot find one boot. The pilgrim insists he came in with 2 gloves and now owns only 1. The dog with the torn ear emerges from beneath the blanket looking extremely satisfied, which is rarely a good sign. You sit up slowly, rubbing your neck while the wool coverlet slides from your shoulder with a soft, greasy sigh. A pale thread clings to your sleeve. Something tiny leaps from it into the straw. You decide, with the courage of the very tired, not to investigate. Outside, the town stirs under a mist that smells of river water, chimney smoke, and damp bread ovens. The monastery bell calls the hour, and shutters begin to open along the crooked street. A woman sweeps yesterday's rushes from a doorway, sending dust, straw ends, and several offended beetles into the gutter. A baker leans from his shop with flour on his beard. A boy drives geese toward the market square, though the geese seem to believe they are driving him. Somewhere nearby, an apprentice pumps water into a wooden bucket while muttering a charm against chilblains, because cold hands are apparently improved by both prayer and complaint. You follow the crowd toward the market. The square lies beneath the shadow of the church, where stalls bloom one by one beneath patched awnings. Fishwives set out smoked eels and salted herring. A potter arranges bowls the colour of wet earth. A butcher sharpens his knife with slow, theatrical strokes, mostly to remind everyone that breakfast could have been worse. Near the market cross, toll collectors sit at a trestle table with wax tablets, marking who has paid for the right to sell. Their iron-bound chest rests between them, and each coin dropped inside sounds colder than the morning. Then you see the bedding merchant. He stands beside a cart piled high with mattresses, bolsters, folded linen, and sacks of feathers tied with cord. His cloak is trimmed with rabbit fur, his cap is pinned with a small pewter badge of Saint-Blé, and his smile has the warm, practised brightness of a man who can praise mildew as softened by age. A painted board on his cart shows a noble sleeper reclining on a white feather bed beneath blue curtains. The noble looks peaceful. The bed looks clean. Neither condition is guaranteed. Come closer, the merchant calls, spotting you with the instinct of a hawk that hunts coin. A bed fit for gentle rest. Goose feather, fine ticking, linen white as lent. You step closer, because curiosity is a dangerous blanket and you are already wrapped in it. He pats the top mattress. It gives beneath his palm with a luxurious sigh, far softer than the alehouse straw. After the hard, damp hollow of last night, it seems almost heavenly. You imagine sinking into it, floating on feathers, free from the scratch of rushes and the shared elbows of strangers. This is how such promises work. They do not begin with lies. They begin with relief. The merchant unties one sack and plunges in his hand, lifting a cloud of pale feathers into the air. They drift down in the morning light, beautiful as snow. A girl passing with a basket gasps. An old woman beside you crosses herself, not from wonder, but because feathers floating indoors are said by some to carry whispers from the dead. No one can quite agree whether this belief began with a priest, a grieving widow, or someone who simply disliked sweeping. Still, several people step back. "Good goose," says the merchant. "Dry, aired, beaten, turned. No better sleep in all the shire." A carter snorts behind you, unless the goose objects. The merchant ignores him with the dignity of a man who has survived worse critics and probably sold bedding to them. He opens another roll, this one stuffed with horsehair. It is firmer, springier, and bound in striped ticking. "Horsehair," he says, "resists damp better than straw and does not flatten so quickly. It also holds its shape," which sounds noble until you remember that horses spend their lives collecting mud, sweat, stable dust, and opinions. The merchant assures the crowd that the hair has been cleaned, combed, and cured. Some swear that horsehair keeps away certain crawling pests because they dislike the sharpness of it. Others say pests are not known for respecting human theories. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the horsehair protects the sleeper or merely gives the insects better corridors. You run your fingers over a folded sheet of linen. It feels cool and smooth, almost shocking after the rough wool of the inn. Linen is prized because it can be washed, boiled when there is enough fuel, beaten, dried, folded, and displayed as proof that a household has order. In noble houses, clean linen can speak louder than a trumpet. It tells guests there are servants enough to scrub, water enough to rinse, and storage chests enough to keep cloth safe from damp and mice. Yet even fine linen can lie. It covers, it brightens, it hides what rests beneath. The merchant lifts a bolster from the cart, and from one seam comes a faint powdery smell old feathers, stale air, and something animal that no amount of lavender quite persuades to leave. You notice small dark specks near the stitching. The merchant notices you noticing. "Road dust," he says quickly. Perhaps it is. Road dust is always available when blame is needed. Beside the cart, a young maid from a manor house bargains over 2 feather pillows. Her mistress, she explains, wants softer bedding before a visiting cousin arrives. The maid's hands are cracked from washing, and a bunch of lavender hangs from her belt. She says they will lay the pillows in the sun if the sun ever returns, beat them with willow rods, and stitch a charm of blue thread into one corner to keep nightmares from settling in the down. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether blue thread guards sleep, but it is small, cheap, and prettier than fear. You watch the merchant fold the linen back over the mattress, smoothing it until the whole bed looks pure, inviting, almost holy. And there is the trick horror does not always look like filth. Sometimes it looks like comfort. It has white sheets, plump feathers, polished bedposts, curtains to keep out draughts, and a scent of lavender laid carefully over the older smells. Some day, in Victorian rooms crowded with wallpaper, coal soot, heavy drapes, and respectable furniture, people will do the same thing on a grander scale. They will cover, tuck, perfume, button, upholster, and praise the softness, while seams and stuffing keep their own quiet record. The dog with the torn ear noses the cart, sneezes once at the feather sack, and trots on. You follow, leaving the merchant to his promises, while one pale feather clings to your cloak and trembles there like a tiny warning. The feather stays caught on your cloak as you leave the market square, pale and stubborn, trembling each time the wind slips between the houses. You do not brush it away. After the bedding merchant's polished smile and soft promises, the feather feels almost like evidence, though evidence of what? You cannot quite say. Comfort. Perhaps. Concealment. a goose with poor legal representation. The dog with the torn ear trots ahead of you through the mist, nose low, tail lifted, as if the road itself has hired him as a guide. By noon the town gate lies behind you, and the path climbs toward the monastery. The abbey stands beyond wet fields and leafless orchards, its walls grey against the winter sky. Smoke rises from the bakehouse. Rooks quarrel on the roof of the church. The bell rings for the next office, and its note moves through the cold air so steadily that even your tired feet seem to fall into rhythm with it. You pass a roadside shrine where someone has left a crust of bread, a bent pin, and a strip of wool tied to a thorn branch. Some swear that tying cloth near a holy place carries your ache away into the wind. Others say it only decorates hedges for confused birds. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the saints mind being asked to manage laundry. At the monastery gate, a lay brother lets you in after studying you, your boots, and the dog, in that order. He wears a wool habit belted with rope, and his hands are red from work. The guest house stands apart from the cloister, low and plain, with a roof darkened by rain, and a little herb garden sleeping under frost. Travellers are received here because charity is holy, but also because monks prefer strangers not to wander too freely among their books, their bread, and their more nervous chickens. Inside, the air is cleaner than the alehouse, though not exactly clean. It smells of smoke, damp stone, boiled cabbage, beeswax, and wool drying too slowly. The floor is spread with rushes, but thinner and better swept than those at the inn. A wooden cross hangs by the door. A bench runs along the wall. Near the hearth, 2 pilgrims warm their hands around cups of small ale, while an old woman with a bundle of flax nods under her hood. A scribe sits at a narrow table in the corner, his fingers stained black, carefully cutting a quill with a small knife. He looks up at the dog, frowns, and returns to his work with the wounded dignity of a man whose margins have suffered before. The lay brother shows you the pallet. It is a narrow cot set against the wall, raised a little above the floor on simple legs. Compared with the shared bed of the alehouse, it looks almost princely. No stranger presses a knee into your hip. No suspicious blanket has already formed political alliances. The ticking is coarse but tidy, stuffed with straw that has been turned recently enough to still smell faintly of field and chaff. A wool blanket lies folded at the foot, brown, heavy, and mended with neat square patches. Beside it rests a small linen cloth for your face, as thin as a promise and nearly as rare. "Keep your cloak off the bed," the brother says. You obey at once, because his voice suggests that many sinners before you have failed in this exact matter. Cloaks carry road dust, lice, fleas, and the damp perfume of stables. In a place where order is a kind of prayer, a dirty cloak on clean bedding is nearly a theological argument. You hang yours on a peg by the hearth, feather and all, and watch steam slowly rise from the hem. The dog sits beneath it and sneezes, perhaps remembering the bedding merchant. The monastery has rules for rest. Travellers may eat after the bell. They may sleep after prayers. They may not quarrel, gamble, steal candles, insult the cook, or bring muddy boots into the sleeping room. These rules seem strict until you remember that every guest house is one tired merchant away from becoming an alehouse with worse singing. The monks understand human weakness. They simply prefer it organised. Before dusk, the lay brother takes the bedding outside to beat it. You follow him into the yard, where the cold bites through your sleeves. He hangs the blanket over a rail and strikes it with a peeled willow rod. Dust rises in pale clouds. Chaff, hair, and tiny dark specks leap into the air and vanish on the wind. The brother does not look surprised. He beats the cot ticking next. then turns it and beats it again, steady as a drum. In some houses, bedding is beaten only for honoured guests. In others, it is beaten when pests become bold enough to pay rent. No one can quite agree whether regular beating truly drives them out or merely teaches them patience. The monks also scatter herbs beneath the pallet: lavender, southernwood, and a little rue. Rue is bitter and sharp, loved by healers, disliked by many noses, and sometimes carried against illness, witchcraft, and bad air. Some swear that a sprig tucked near the pillow keeps lice and wicked dreams away together. The old woman by the hearth says wicked dreams are easier to remove than lice, because at least dreams leave before breakfast. You sit for supper on a bench worn smooth by countless robes and travellers' cloaks. The meal is plain pottage, coarse bread, a little smoked fish, and ale so weak it seems mostly a polite suggestion of ale. Yet it warms you. The bowl heats your palms. The bread, though hard at the edges, tastes honest after the road. The bell rings again, calling the monks to prayer, and their chant soon drifts through the wall, low and even, like wind moving under a door. Night gathers. In the guest room, the beeswax candles burn more cleanly than the tallow dips of common houses, giving the walls a soft amber shine. Shadows from the rafters lie long and gentle. The scribe covers his inkhorn. The pilgrims remove their boots and set them near the fire, souls turned upward to dry. One man whispers that if you place boots too close to flame, mischievous spirits may climb in and make you walk in circles at dawn. Another says wet leather needs no spirit to ruin a man's morning. Those who tell the tale never fully agree, but both move their boots back a little. You lie on the narrow cot. It is better than the inn bed. That is the comfort. It is still a bed of its age. That is the truth. The straw rustles under your shoulder. The wool blanket scratches your chin. Somewhere in the wall, a mouse works patiently at a mystery. The herbs beneath you release their bitter scent each time you shift. The monastery is cleaner, quieter, holier, and more disciplined than the alehouse. Yet the old enemies remain damp. Mites, lice, cold, smoke, and the tiny failures hidden in seams. Even here, under a cross and within sound of prayer, bedding is never innocent. It must be watched, aired, beaten, blessed, mended, and mistrusted. The last bell of the evening sounds. You pull the blanket close, listening as the chant fades into stone, and the dog settles near the door with a sigh that sounds almost monastic. The feather on your cloak trembles once in the hearth draught, then grows still. Morning enters the monastery guest house in thin grey layers, sliding over the floor rushes, touching the cold legs of the cot, and finding you already half awake beneath the brown wool blanket. The last dream of the night loosens from you like smoke from damp wood. Somewhere beyond the wall, a monk coughs, somewhere closer. The dog with the torn ear scratches once, gives up, and sighs as though the entire burden of Christendom has settled on his ribs. The bell rings before dawn, steady and solemn, and the sound travels through stone, straw, and sleep until every traveller in the room remembers that day has returned without asking permission. You sit up slowly. The narrow cot has been kinder than the alehouse bed, though kindness is a modest word in winter. Your shoulder aches from the hard ticking. Your feet are cold. The herbs beneath the pallet have given your cloak a bitter scent of rue and lavender, which is better than smelling only of road, though not by a wide margin. The pale feather still clings to the damp hem, somehow surviving the night like a small stubborn witness. After a breakfast of coarse bread, thin ale, and pottage that tastes mainly of patience, you follow the lay brother out through the yard. Frost rims the herb beds, smoke rises from the kitchen chimney. Chickens pick at the frozen mud with the grim concentration of scholars searching a difficult manuscript. The brother carries a bundle of linen under one arm, tied tight with cord, and another monk follows with a wooden tub, a bar of harsh soap, and a face that suggests soap is not to be wasted on people who complain. The path slopes toward the river. There, through the bare willow branches, you hear the slap of wet cloth against stone. It comes again and again, a flat, hard sound in the cold morning. At the riverbank, several women kneel or stand beside steaming tubs, their skirts tucked up, sleeves rolled high, hands red from water and weather. They are laundresses, and their work looks less like cleaning than a quiet battle with everything human bodies leave behind. Sheets hang from lines strung between trees, stiffening almost as soon as the wind touches them. Linen cloths lie across bushes. Wool blankets are spread over rails, heavy as sleeping animals. A kettle hangs above a small fire, heating water slowly, because hot water is precious and wood is never as plentiful as tired people wish. One woman beats a sheet with a wooden bat. Another rubs soap into a stained corner until her knuckles shine raw. A third lifts a cloth from the river, twists it with both hands, and sends water streaming back into the current like melted glass. The lay brother nods to them and places the guest-house linen beside a tub. You stand nearby, stamping warmth into your feet, and begin to understand how difficult cleanliness truly is. A bed may be remade in a moment, but bedding must be dragged, soaked, boiled if possible, beaten, rinsed, wrung, carried, dried, folded, and guarded from smoke, mud, geese, careless boots, and the dog, who has already shown interest in helping incorrectly. In fine stories, white linen appears on noble beds as if summoned by angels. Here, angels are absent, and the work is done by women with cracked hands before breakfast. One laundress catches you watching and laughs softly. Thought sheets wash themselves. Did you? You shake your head, though yesterday you might nearly have believed it. She holds up a length of linen. By candlelight it might have seemed pure enough. In morning, it tells a longer tale yellowing at the fold, greyness along the edges, little shadows where damp has sat too long. She rubs it with soap made from lye and fat, sharp-smelling and rough. Soap exists, yes, but good soap costs money, and fuel to heat water costs labour, and time costs everything. In poorer houses, bedding may be aired more often than washed. In inns, it may be turned, brushed, perfumed, prayed over, and returned to service with heroic optimism. Some swear that laying sheets under a full moon whitens them better than sun. Others insist moonlight invites wandering spirits to sit upon the cloth and leave dreams behind for the next sleeper. No one can quite agree whether this is a warning, a charm, or a tale invented by someone who did not want to bring the washing in after dark. The laundress says she trusts sunlight, boiling water, and a strong arm. Then she adds that a prayer never hurts, especially when the stain is stubborn. You help carry water from the river to the tub, and the cold bites your fingers so sharply that for a moment you forget every other discomfort you've ever known. The bucket handle cuts into your palm, your breath clouds before your face, the dog trots beside you, proud and useless. On the bank, the laundresses work in rhythm, cloth slapping stone, wood striking linen, water splashing into tubs. Their breath rises like incense, though less holy and more exhausted. A monk sprinkles a little ash into a pot for washing. Ash and lye can strip grease. Sun can sweeten cloth. Frost can help kill certain pests, or so many believe, though those who tell the tale never fully agree whether frost kills the vermin or simply persuades them to wait somewhere warmer. Bedding is carried outdoors when weather allows, spread over hedges, hung from beams, beaten with rods, smoked with herbs, or tucked with lavender into chests. Yet rain comes, damp returns. Winter closes its fist. A blanket not fully dried becomes a private weather system, holding chill and sourness deep in its weave. You think of later houses, later rooms, later respectable beds with Victorian curtains, plump bolsters, patterned quilts, and mattresses too heavy to move often. You think of soot from coal fires settling on fabric, of servants hauling sheets through narrow stairways, of wash days steaming in courtyards and kitchens. The centuries change the cut of clothing and the shape of bed frames, but the labour remains hidden beneath a clean surface. Every white sheet is a story of sore backs, raw hands, and water carried in cold weather. The laundress who laughed at you takes the guest house face cloths and drops them into hot water. Steam rises, carrying the smell of soap, wet linen, and river mud. She stirs them with a stick, then lifts one, squints, and frowns as though judging a sinner at confession. This one needs more work. Many things do. By midday, the sun shows itself weakly through the clouds. The sheets on the line stir in the wind, snapping gently. They are not perfect. Nothing here is, but they are cleaner than before, and in a world of smoke, mud, sweat, straw, and shared sleep, cleaner than before is a real victory. You help fold one dry corner, feeling the cold linen against your palms. It smells of river, soap, frost, and a faint breath of lavender from the monk's bundle. The bell rings again from the monastery hill. The laundresses keep working. You turn back toward the road with damp cuffs, aching hands, and a new respect for every bed that does not announce its history too loudly. Behind you, the sheets lift and fall in the pale winter light, like tired banners of surrender, or perhaps of hope. You leave the riverbank with your cuffs still damp and your fingers remembering the cold long after the water is gone. The monastery bell fades behind you as the road bends between fields silvered with frost, and for a while the world is only the slow sound of your boots, the soft panting of the dog with the torn ear, and the creak of cart wheels somewhere ahead in the mist. The pale feather on your cloak has finally loosened, but another clings to your memory, along with the slap of linen on stone and the laundress's cracked hands working against stains that would rather become family heirlooms. By afternoon, the path climbs toward a manor house. It is not a castle, though it would very much like you to notice its ambitions. A ditch circles the outer yard. A timber gate stands beneath a little watch loft. Beyond it, the hall rises broad and dark-roofed, with smoke lifting from a louver and pigeons gathered along the ridge like grey-robed judges. The steward at the gate wears a fur-lined cloak and a face trained to suspect everyone, including weather. He questions your purpose, studies your boots, frowns at the dog, and finally allows you in because a traveller from the monastery carries just enough holiness to inconvenience refusal. Inside the yard, servants cross between kitchen, stable, dairy, and storehouse. A boy hauls logs toward the hall. A maid carries pewter cups wrapped in cloth. Near the well, 2 women rinse herbs in a bucket, and the smell of rosemary, lavender, and crushed mint rises into the cold air. Wealth lives here, but it does not float above labour. It is carried, scrubbed, polished, warmed, aired, folded, and shouted into place by people whose names rarely appear in songs. You are led through the great hall first. Rushes cover the floor, fresher than those at the alehouse, mixed with sweet herbs so each step releases a faint green scent under the heavier odours of smoke, roast fat, wet wool, and people trying to look noble while hungry. A long table waits beneath soot-dark beams. Tapestries hang against the walls to keep out draughts, showing hunts, saints, and one very confused-looking lion no one in the household has likely seen. Beeswax candles stand ready for evening, expensive and golden, while a servant trims them with little silver snuffers as carefully as a barber tending a prince. Then the steward opens an oak door with a heavy iron key. You enter the bedchamber. At first, it seems like a miracle. The room is smaller than the hall, enclosed, private, and dim, with wooden shutters closed against the wind. A fire burns in a hooded hearth. A carved chest stands near the wall. Curtains hang around the bed, thick and dark red, falling from a wooden frame like the walls of a tiny secret house. The mattress rises high, layered with feather bedding, wool blankets, linen sheets, and a coverlet embroidered with curling vines. A brass basin rests on a stand. A little pomander of herbs and spices hangs by the bedpost, releasing a scent of clove, lavender, and dried orange peel, as if the air itself has been dressed for company. After straw, shared elbows, monastery pallets, and river-cold laundry, this chamber looks like comfort crowned. You step closer. The bed curtains stir though the windows are shut. The fire gives warmth, yes, but the air feels thick, as if many nights have been tucked inside and not let out again. The curtains that keep away draughts also trap breath, smoke, sweat, perfume, damp, and the sour little truths of bodies asleep too long behind cloth. The feather mattress looks soft enough to swallow a man whole, which is pleasant until you remember that being swallowed whole by old feathers may not be a triumph. The linen is white. The coverlet is fine. The room smells sweet, yet beneath the sweetness lies something shut in and animal, the hidden underside of luxury. No one can quite agree whether closed bed curtains are more blessing or trap. They keep warmth close, protect modesty, soften the hard shape of a cold room, and make a bed feel like a chapel of sleep. But they also shelter what should be chased out by air and sun. Dust gathers in folds. Mites and other small tenants find seams. Fleas travel in cuffs, hems, dog fur, servant bedding, noble gowns, and the wool cloaks of guests who swear they are perfectly clean. A bed with curtains is a fortress, and fortresses are famous for keeping inhabitants inside. The lady of the manor has ordered the chamber prepared for a visiting cousin. You watch two maids lift the coverlet, shake the sheets, and smooth the linen with quick, practised hands. One carries a little bowl of dried lavender and southernwood to sprinkle near the mattress edge. Another rubs the bedposts with vinegar steeped in rue and rosemary, saying it drives away corruption in the air. Some swear that vinegar, herbs, and strong perfumes can protect a sleeper from illness and biting pests alike. Others suspect they mostly protect the household from admitting the bed needs opening, beating, and perhaps a small war. Even now it is hard to tell whether the remedy is medicine, ceremony, or the noble art of making trouble smell expensive. The steward points with pride to the feather bed, best in the house. A maid standing behind him makes a face so small only you and the dog notice. The dog, not invited but present by divine stubbornness, sniffs beneath the bed and sneezes. There are boxes there, and rolled cloths, and a warming pan with a long handle used to carry hot coals beneath the sheets before sleep. Useful, certainly. Also dangerous in the hands of a sleepy servant, for a single coal can scorch linen, smoke the mattress, or leave a hole that later generations may blame on mice. Some households place hot stones wrapped in cloth at the foot of the bed. Others warm bricks by the hearth. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether warmth at the feet brings sweet dreams, but everyone agrees cold toes bring curses, even from the pious. A small charm is stitched inside one curtain, a scrap of parchment marked with a cross and a saint's name. The maid tells you it is for restful sleep. Another servant whispers it is for keeping night hags from sitting on the sleeper's chest. A third says it was added after the Lord dreamed of drowning 3 nights in a row and blamed the pillows. This seems unfair to the pillows, though they are not here to defend themselves. You imagine a later age, a Victorian bedchamber dressed in patterned wallpaper, heavy drapes, horsehair upholstery, lace covers, thick mattresses, and closed windows against coal fog. Different century, different polish. Same temptation: shut the room, sweeten the air, admire the fabric, and hope the unseen stays polite. Respectability loves a curtain. It hides rumpled sheets, insect specks, damp patches, and the exhausted labour of servants who must keep softness looking innocent. The maids finish smoothing the bed. The chamber glows in firelight, beautiful and uneasy. Outside, the evening bell from some distant chapel trembles through the wall. You touch the bed curtain lightly, and dust lifts in a faint golden breath. The steward smiles as if he has shown you paradise. You smile back, because manners are warmer than honesty. The steward's smile follows you out of the manor bedchamber like the scent of clove from the little pomander. Pleasant at first and then oddly sharp in the throat. Behind you, the maids close the red curtains around the feather bed, tucking the softness away as if sealing a secret inside a reliquary. You descend the narrow stair with the dog at your heel, and by the time you return to the yard, evening has gathered beneath the eaves. Smoke leans low from the kitchen roof. A servant shakes crumbs from a trencher into the mud. Somewhere in the stable, a horse stamps, and the familiar smell of damp straw rises as though the world wishes to remind you that luxury and livestock are never separated by as much distance as nobles prefer to believe. Near the outer gate, a small crowd has formed around a man with the leather satchel, a stained cloak, and the grave expression of someone who knows the names of too many unpleasant powders. He is not quite a physician, not quite a barber-surgeon, and not quite a village wise man, but in a cold place with biting insects, aching joints, bad teeth, and mysterious rashes. People become generous with titles. Tonight, everyone calls him doctor, and he accepts this with the calm of a man who has been paid in eggs before. The lady's maid stands before him, twisting her apron. "It is the bed," she whispers. "My mistress says something troubles her at night." The doctor nods as if the bed has confessed already. You drift closer, because after the alehouse blanket, the market feathers, the monastery cot, the frozen river linen, and the noble chamber's shut curtains, you've begun to understand that every bed in the world has a second life after dark. The dog sits beside you, watching with bright interest. He may be hoping for sausage. He's likely to receive medical fumes instead, which is the sort of disappointment that builds character in dogs and travellers alike. The doctor opens his satchel on an overturned barrel. Inside are little cloth packets, clay jars, dried herbs, a roll of parchment, a small knife, a bundle of feathers, a lump of brimstone, and a bottle of vinegar so sharp-smelling it seems capable of judging your sins. He lays each item out carefully while the servants lean in. A boy from the kitchen crosses himself. A groom mutters that bed bugs dislike smoke. A laundress says they dislike being crushed more. No one can quite agree whether this is medical advice or merely common sense wearing boots. First, the doctor asks about the bites. Where are they? When do they come? Are they in lines? Does the mistress wake itching? Has the mattress been opened? Have the curtains been beaten? Has the warming pan scorched the foot linen? Because sometimes servants blame insects when the true culprit is a coal with ambition. The maid answers each question in a low voice, glancing toward the manor house as if the red curtains themselves might overhear. Then the doctor prepares his cure. He takes rue, wormwood, lavender, and southernwood, crushing them together in a wooden bowl with vinegar. The scent rises bitter, green, and biting, strong enough to make your eyes water. He says the mixture must be rubbed along bedposts, seams, and curtain rings. He adds a pinch of powdered pepper, because some swear that sharp spices drive away crawling pests. Others swear expensive spices mostly drive away money. Even now, it is hard to tell whether insects fear pepper, though the kitchen boy sneezes 3 times and looks thoroughly defeated. Next comes smoke. In the yard, a brazier is brought, and the doctor drops herbs onto the coals: rosemary, juniper, and a little brimstone. A yellowish smoke curls upward, harsh and strange. People step back. The dog retreats behind your legs with the wounded air of one betrayed by civilization. The doctor says the smoke should be carried into the chamber. The bed curtains opened, the mattress edges exposed, the cracks warmed and stung with fumes. Some swear that smoke drives out vermin hidden in wood and stuffing. Others say it only drives them deeper, where they sit smugly in the dark like tiny abbots refusing reform. The doctor also has a charm. He unwraps a strip of parchment marked with a cross, a saint's name, and letters arranged in a way that looks important even if no one present can read them. It is to be tied beneath the bed frame with blue thread. The maid looks relieved. Charms are comforting because they give fear a knot, a place to sit, a little boundary. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether such signs protect the sleeper, protect the mind, or simply protect the household from feeling helpless. In a world where the unseen bites hardest after midnight, even a doubtful charm can feel warmer than bare reason. A servant fetches one of the feather pillows from the chamber. By firelight, it looks soft and harmless. Then the doctor pinches along the seam and frowns. He holds it near the candle. Tiny specks darken the stitching. A faint musty odour escapes when he presses it. Old feathers and trapped breath. The maid's face tightens. "Open it," she asks. The doctor hesitates, because opening a pillow means labour, mess, and perhaps a truth no mistress wishes to see. But he nods. With the little knife, he cuts a few stitches. Feathers bulge out like pale gossip. He spreads them with 2 fingers, and the crowd leans closer, then leans back almost at once. No gore, no drama, only the intimate unpleasantness of bedding that has been trusted too long. Dust, broken feather quills, dark crumbs from the seam. A smell that lavender has been politely failing to defeat. The doctor says the pillow must be emptied, the feathers aired, the ticking boiled if it can survive boiling, or replaced if it cannot. The bed frame should be scrubbed, the curtains beaten, the mattress turned in sunlight, and the chamber opened whenever weather allows. This, you notice, is the first cure that sounds less like magic and more like exhausting work. The maid notices too. Her shoulders sink. Here lies the true horror of bedding not only the pests, but the labour required to fight them. Herbs are easier than hauling mattresses into the yard. Charms are simpler than opening seams. Perfume is kinder to pride than admitting that the grand bed has become a warm little kingdom for creatures that pay no rent and respect no title. The doctor gathers his powders. The steward, who has arrived silently, asks whether the trouble is serious. Only if people sleep. the doctor says. This is not reassuring, but it is difficult to dispute. Night settles deeper over the manor. The distant bell sounds again, dim beyond the fields. You stand near the brazier while the smoke thins, and the half-burned candle in the doctor's hand gutters in the wind. The dog creeps forward, sniffs the opened pillow, sneezes with great moral force, and retreats once more. You cannot blame him. The doctor's smoke clings to your cloak long after you leave the manor yard, bitter with juniper, rue, vinegar, and that faint yellow sting of brimstone that makes every breath feel as though someone has tried to pickle the air. Behind you, servants carry the opened pillow away with the solemn care usually given to saints' bones or dangerous pies. The red-curtained bedchamber glows in an upper window for a moment. Then the shutters close, sealing its warmth, its perfume, and whatever little mysteries remain inside the seams. You walk on before full dark, because the steward has made it gently clear that charity at a monastery is holy, but charity at a manor is often scheduled. Rain begins within the hour. At first it is a fine mist, silvering the road and darkening the furrows on either side. Then it thickens into a steady cold fall that taps on your hood, beads on the dog's torn ear, and turns the lane into a ribbon of soft brown misery. Your boots sink, your cloak grows heavy, the fields fade into grey. Somewhere far behind you, or perhaps only in memory, a bell marks the evening hour, muffled by rain until it sounds like a cup struck under cloth. The dog keeps close now, no longer proud, no longer guide, merely wet. Ahead, beneath a stand of bare elms, a roadside inn crouches against the weather. Its roof sags like an old hat. A lantern burns by the door, the flame shivering behind horn panes. A cart stands in the yard with one wheel splintered and propped on a stone, while two men argue beside it in the rain with the quiet despair of people who know the wheel will not be repaired by argument, but must attempt it anyway. No one can quite agree whether a broken wheel is bad luck, poor craft, or proof that roads are secretly alive and hostile. Tonight, the road seems guilty enough. You enter the inn with water running from your hem. The first thing you notice is the smell: wet wool, smoke, sour ale, leather, onion broth, damp hay from the stable beyond the wall, and beneath all of it, a deeper stale odour, like a chest opened after many winters. The hall is low, crowded, and poorly lit by tallow dips that smoke more than shine. Rushes cover the floor in a tired layer, dark where boots have crushed them flat. Near the hearth, a group of pilgrims huddle under steaming cloaks, pewter badges dull against the fabric. One bears a little scallop shell, another has a tiny image of St. Thomas sewn to his hat. A merchant sits apart, guarding a wrapped bundle as if it contains either silk or sin. The innkeeper is a narrow man with a face like dried apple, and a voice softened by long practice in disappointing guests. "Bed?" he asks. You nod. He looks over your shoulder at the dog. Dog sleeps below. The dog sneezes rainwater onto the floor. That is his argument. You say quietly, though not loud enough to become responsible for it. The innkeeper leads you past the hearth toward a little side room screened with hanging sacking. Within it are two pallets, a stool, a cracked jug, and several blankets folded on a chest. The room has no window, only a narrow vent near the rafters, where smoke and cold air negotiate without success. A half-burned candle stands in a lump of wax on the stool. Its wick has been pinched out recently, leaving the scent of old smoke. Then the innkeeper lifts the top blanket. It is black. Not the deep, handsome black of dyed wool worn by a wealthy burgess on a feast day. but a tired black-brown dark grey thing whose true colour has been decided by years of smoke, hands, damp, soot, and uses no one wishes to list. It is thick, which is good. It is warm, which is dangerous. It has patches along the edge, and one corner is stiff where something was spilled, dried, and promoted to history. You look at it. The innkeeper looks at you. Best blanket left. He says, "This is possible. That is the sorrow of it. You take it because rain has soaked your bones, and pride is a thin covering in cold weather." The dog circles beneath the pallet, sniffs once, and gives you a glance full of urgent scholarship. He has studied the matter. His findings are not favourable. Before lying down, you watch the other travellers settle. The pilgrims remove their badges carefully and wrap them in cloth, as if holy metal must not be left to tarnish in common air. One old pilgrim ties a knot in his belt and mutters that it keeps thieves from entering dreams. Some swear a knot made before sleep can hold the soul safely in the body until dawn. Others say it only makes undressing more troublesome in the dark. Even now, it is hard to tell whether such customs protect anyone. But they give tired hands something to do. The merchant asks whether the blankets are aired. The innkeeper says, "Aired yesterday." Yesterday was rain. "Aye," says the innkeeper, "plenty of air in rain." No one laughs, but the fire pops as if amused. You sit on the pallet and spread the black blanket over your knees. It releases warmth slowly, and with it a smell of old bodies, hearth smoke, damp wool, stale straw, and something faintly metallic, perhaps from coins, buckles, or the long memory of travellers sleeping in their clothes. In inns like this, blankets pass from shoulder to shoulder, pallet to pallet, season to season. A merchant uses one after riding through sleet. A pilgrim wraps sore feet in it. A drover sleeps under it with mud still drying on his hose. A child spills broth. Someone sweats through a fever. Someone bleeds from a cracked heel. Someone hides a crust of bread in its fold and forgets it. Then the blanket is shaken, perhaps brushed, perhaps hung by the fire and declared ready for the next soul. That is the grim mercy of travel. You rarely receive comfort that has not comforted others first. You pull the blanket closer. It scratches your chin, yet its weight presses pleasantly against your ribs. The body betrays you again by liking what the mind distrusts. Outside, rain taps the roof. Inside, the pilgrims whisper prayers. The merchant shifts his bundle beneath his head instead of trusting the pillow. From the stable comes the soft stamp of horses and the rustle of hay. A servant girl scatters a handful of dried mint and tansy near the doorway, saying it sweetens the room and discourages fleas. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether fleas are discouraged by tansy, but travellers are, at least, encouraged to believe the inn is trying. In a later age, the black blanket will change its shape. It will become a heavy quilt in a lodging house, a horsehair mattress in a narrow rented room, a respectable coverlet in a Victorian boarding house where soot from the city settles on every sill. It will be darker perhaps, or brighter, patterned, brushed, folded neatly at the foot of a bed. Yet the old problem remains the same bedding used by many, washed too seldom, dried poorly, trusted because exhaustion leaves little choice. The candle guttering on the stool shows a mark near the blanket seam, a pale crust, a dark line, a scatter of tiny specks. You decide not to name them. Naming things gives them confidence. The dog crawls beneath the pallet and rests his wet head on your boot. For a while, that is enough. You lie back in the close, smoky room, listening to rain, whispers, hooves, and the soft breathing of strangers beyond the sacking. The black blanket warms slowly over you, carrying all its unseen stains into the dark, and though you do not trust it, you sleep under it anyway. Morning rises behind the rain as a pale smear of light, and you wake beneath the black blanket with the strange gratitude of someone who has survived both cold and fabric. The room smells of wet wool, old smoke, and the faint mint scattered at the doorway, now crushed beneath passing feet. The dog beneath the pallet is still using your boot as a pillow, and when you try to move, he opens one eye with the offended look of a small lord whose lands have been disturbed before tax season. Beyond the sacking, the inn has already begun its day. A pilgrim coughs. The merchant complains softly over the state of the road. Someone drops a cup, and the innkeeper says nothing, which is worse than shouting, because silence in an inn usually means the cost has already been added to someone's bill. You fold the black blanket as neatly as conscience allows and place it back on the chest, where it sits in the grey light like a sleeping animal with secrets. Outside, the broken cartwheel has not improved overnight. The two men who argued over it in the rain now kneel beside the axle, mud up to their cuffs, while a third man offers advice with the great generosity of one not doing the work. The road is slick. The fields steam faintly where morning touches them. Smoke rises from the inn chimney and is flattened by low clouds. You step into the yard, stretch your aching back, and find a peddler spreading cloths along the side of his wagon. Colour blooms in the dull morning. After days of brown wool, grey stone, black rushes, and rain-dark cloaks, the sight nearly startles you. There are cloths dyed madder red, woad blue, soft green, saffron yellow, and a purple so uncertain it seems to be negotiating with brown. There are patterned hangings with little vines, birds, stars, and checkerwork borders. Some pieces are coarse but cheerful, meant for beds, walls, chests, or the vanity of anyone who's grown tired of looking at damp timber. The peddler shakes one open, and it snaps in the air like a banner over a tiny kingdom of dust. Bright cloth for a bright room. He calls, keep out draughts, sweeten the chamber, warm the eye and the soul. A woman carrying eggs stops to look. A pilgrim touches a blue hanging with reverent fingers. Even the dog sniffs a red cloth and sneezes, perhaps overwhelmed by beauty, or perhaps by whatever has been used to achieve it. The peddler is a narrow, lively man with rings on 3 fingers and a cap decorated with a pheasant feather that has seen better pheasants. He speaks quickly of dyes and trade roads, of dyers' vats and river towns, of wool combed and woven, of linen bleached in fields, of patterns copied from noble chambers and abbey screens. He says a bed hanging can transform a room. He is not wrong. Cloth softens stone, it hides cracks, it holds warmth. It turns a bare sleeping corner into something that feels chosen rather than endured. And yet, when he shakes another hanging loose, dust rises in the light. You see it clearly, a soft brown cloud drifting from the folds. The peddler waves it away as travel dust, as all sellers do when the past escapes from merchandise. But folded cloth has its own memory. It remembers warehouses, pack animals, damp carts, crowded stalls, cedar chests, smoky rooms, and the hands of everyone who lifted, judged, haggled, rejected, and folded it again. A bed hanging may look clean by candlelight while holding dust deep in its weave, ready to breathe out each time the sleeper stirs. Some swear that bright colours keep melancholy away in winter. Others say certain colours invite envy, and envy, being a rude guest, sits on the bed whether asked or not. No one can quite agree whether green cloth over a bed brings good dreams or damp luck. An old woman near the wagon insists red protects against illness, fever, and the evil eye. A younger man says red only shows that one has money enough to attract thieves. The peddler agrees with both. Depending on who appears most likely to buy, he lifts a yellow cloth next, and the colour glows warmly even under the dull sky. Saffron, weld, onion skins, and other plants can make yellow, he says. Some dyes are humble and earthy. Others travel far, cost dear, and arrive with stories attached to them like burrs. The peddler speaks of alum used to fix colours, of urine in dyeing vats, of mordants and soaking and boiling, though he makes the craft sound cleaner than any dyer's yard has ever smelled. Dyers often work at the edges of towns for a reason. Their vats steam, their water runs strange, their hands take on colours no saint has promised to remove. You think of future rooms again, those Victorian chambers with wallpapers, curtains, bed covers, and bright decorative cloths made fashionable by industry and trade. You think of colours praised as modern, rich, and desirable, while some pigments and dyes carry dangers no sleeper sees. Arsenical greens will one day glow beautifully on wallpaper and fabric, admired in parlours and bedrooms where dust loosens from walls and cloth into the air. Respectable homes will dress themselves in colour, and colour, like comfort, will sometimes arrive with teeth hidden inside its smile. Here in the medieval yard, the danger is less refined but no less sly. Dye can irritate skin, dust can trouble lungs, damp cloth can sour, stored hangings can shelter moths, lice, fleas, and little beetles that find wool as inviting as a feast. A bright bed curtain may hide stains better than white linen. A patterned coverlet may forgive what plain cloth would confess. Cheerful colour can be a kindness in a dark room. But it can also help a household pretend that the bedding is fresher than it is. The egg woman buys a small red strip to sew near her child's bed. She says it is for warmth and protection. The peddler tells her red is lucky. A pilgrim buys a blue cloth to wrap a relic badge. The merchant from the inn asks whether the green hanging is moth-eaten. The peddler looks wounded and says moths have excellent taste but poor access to his goods. This is almost certainly not an answer. You run your fingers over a patterned bed hanging, feeling the raised threads beneath your skin. It is beautiful. That is the difficulty. Not every dangerous thing looks ugly. Not every unclean thing smells foul at first. Some arrive folded, dyed, praised, and sold beside a muddy inn yard while morning smoke curls around them and tired people imagine better sleep. The monastery bell is too far away now, but in your mind you hear it still, slow and hollow, marking time beyond the road. The half-burned candle from the inn is tucked into your pouch, saved because travellers waste nothing. The broken cartwheel creaks as the men lift it back into place. The dog shakes rain from his coat, spraying your leg with democratic fairness. You step away from the peddler's cloths as he calls to another customer, bright hangings flashing in his hands like captured sunset. Behind you, dust settles back into the folds. The peddler's bright cloths fade behind you as the road carries you onward, their reds and blues shrinking into the grey morning like memories of warmth. The cartwheel groans at your back, the dog trots beside you, and the half-burned candle knocks gently against your hip. By afternoon, rain has thinned into mist, and the world grows quiet except for dripping hedges and the soft suck of mud around your boots. Toward evening, you reach a hall, larger than the roadside inn and humbler than the manor, belonging to a minor lord whose family owns enough land to demand respect and enough leeks to remain humble before God. The gate is open because a reeve is holding business in the yard, hearing of lost pigs, broken fences, unpaid rents, and one goose accused of trespass. Manor courts are rarely swift, but they are warm compared with fields. No one can quite agree whether the goose understands the charge. though it looks offended enough to suggest innocence. You're allowed inside after offering news of the road, a kind of coin when silver is scarce. The great hall receives you like a smoky cave dressed for supper. Rushes lie on the stone floor, mixed with rosemary and bits of sweet flag. The central hearth burns without a chimney, sending smoke upward toward a louver in the roof, though much of it pauses among the rafters to season everyone equally. A cupboard holds pewter dishes under the watch of a servant boy who guards them like a dragon protecting spoons. At the high end, the Lord's family eats on better trenchers, with linen over the table and beeswax candles glowing beside a salt cellar. Below them, servants, tenants, and guests take places according to rank, luck, and who arrives before the bench is full. You receive pea pottage, coarse bread, and smoked fish. It warms you. The dog receives a bone from a kitchen maid and decides this hall has excellent spiritual qualities. As night gathers, the tables are cleared and the hall changes its purpose. By day it is court, dining room, passageway, workplace, and theatre of rank. By night it becomes a sleeping place for those who do not own chambers, curtains, or the right to shut a door. Servants begin to prepare their beds, though bed is a generous word. A few unroll mats near the wall. A groom drags a sack of straw from behind a chest. The kitchen maid spreads an old cloak beside the hearth. Close enough for warmth, but not close enough. She hopes to catch a spark. 2 pages curl beneath a bench, using folded tunics for pillows. Near the Lord's bed platform, a manservant settles beside a locked trunk, not because the trunk is comfortable, but because silver cups are safer when guarded by a cold spine. You stand near the hearth and watch the quiet geography of sleep appear. Rank does not vanish at bedtime, it lies down in order. The lord and lady withdraw behind a screen to a bed raised above the floor, with linen, coverlets, and curtains drawn against draughts. The steward has a pallet near the side chamber. The visiting priest is given a narrow cot and a small pillow. Servants lie closer to doors, trunks, benches, and ashes, where warmth and inconvenience meet like old friends. Some swear that sleeping near the hearth keeps evil spirits away, because spirits dislike honest fire. Others say it mostly keeps your hair smelling like smoked eel. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the fire protects sleepers from darkness or simply replaces one danger with another, for sparks leap when logs shift, and every old hall carries a tale of a blanket scorched at midnight. The maid places a green branch near the edge of her cloak, a charm against flames. The groom tells her green wood only smokes. She tells him smoke rises, but foolishness spreads sideways. You find a place near a carved chest under a wall hanging, not far from the manservant with the keys. The hanging shows a hunting scene, though the stag appears larger than the horses, perhaps from artistic courage rather than observation. Dust breathes from it whenever the hall door opens. Beneath you, the rushes crackle. Someone lends you a folded blanket, cleaner than the black one from the inn, rougher than the monastery wool, and carrying the scent of cedar chest, damp storage, and unfamiliar shoulders. The servant beside the trunk nods toward the Lord's curtained bed. "Soft up there," he murmurs. "Better, you ask." He shrugs. "Warmer, not always better." He tells you that he once slept beneath that bed when the Lord's cousin visited and every pallet was taken. The space underneath was full of boxes, dust, old shoes, and a warming pan with a cracked lid. He says something moved in the straw all night. Some swear that the space beneath a bed belongs to household spirits, which is why children are warned not to thrust hands into the dark after prayers. Others say the only spirits beneath beds are mice, lost pins, and servants too tired to argue. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. but you notice the man keeps his feet away from the shadow under the platform. The hall settles slowly. Boots are placed soles up near the hearth. Wet cloaks hang on pegs. A woman rubs goose grease into cracked hands, then ties them in linen strips to soften the skin by morning. A page whispers a prayer against nightmares and tucks a hazel twig beneath his sleeve. The suspicious monk from the monastery would likely disapprove, but he is not here, and small comforts survive where theology grows tired. You lie back. The wall at your shoulder is cold. The blanket is warm enough in the middle and thin at the edges. Around you, bodies arrange themselves into uneasy peace. A servant coughs. A child turns over. The dog wedges himself against your knee as if claiming ancient rights. Above, smoke gathers under the roof beams and slips slowly through the louver into the dark. The truth of the hall is clear in the firelight. Bedding divides the household. It marks who owns linen, who borrows wool, who sleeps behind curtains, who guards trunks, who lies on straw, who curls beneath benches, and who must rise first to sweep the rushes before anyone noble admits the room became a dormitory. Yet discomfort travels across rank with remarkable boldness. The lord has curtains but stale air. The servant has floor warmth but sparks. The priest has a cot but no guarantee against fleas. The child has a blanket but dreams anyway. The last candle burns low, its flame bending like a tired head. Somewhere outside, a bell sounds faintly through mist. You pull the borrowed blanket close, listening to the hall breathe, and understand that no bed in this world is simple. Every place of sleep is a bargain between warmth and filth, privacy and air, softness and suspicion. Rank and the body stubborn need to rest. Beneath the Lord's curtained bed, something gives one small rustle. Everyone pretends not to hear. The small rustle beneath the Lord's bed follows you into sleep and then into morning, where it becomes the scratching of a broom, the crackle of fresh rushes, and the low mutter of servants waking before the noble household admits the day exists. You open your eyes to a hall that looks at once familiar and strange, with pale light sliding through the smoke hole above, ashes grey in the hearth, and bodies rising from floor, bench, and corner like bundles of laundry remembering they are people. The dog with the torn ear stretches against your knee, yawns with impressive disrespect, and shakes himself so thoroughly that 3 pages glare at him as if he personally invented dawn. The bell from the chapel beyond the yard rings through the frost. Servants move quickly now. The kitchen maid folds her old cloak, checks it for sparks, and thanks the little green branch by the hearth, though no one can quite agree whether the branch protected her or merely survived by luck. The manservant beside the trunk rubs his stiff back and lifts the iron keyring from beneath his blanket. A boy sweeps, rushes toward the door with a birch broom, gathering straw ends, crumbs, ash, feathers, and the night's small mysteries into a pile that no one examines closely. Breakfast is coarse bread, thin ale, and a spoonful of warm pottage, which is more comfort than glory. But comfort is the coin you understand best by now. Afterward, the steward sends you with 2 servants across the yard to the winter storehouse. The air outside is white with frost. Every roof edge glitters. The mud has hardened into ridges that catch at your boots. Smoke rises straight for once, climbing into a still sky, while beyond the manor fence the fields lie pale and silent, the furrows silvered like old scars. The broken cartwheel from the roadside inn returns to your thoughts as you watch a wagon stand frozen by the barn, its spokes rimed with ice, its axle wrapped in cloth against the cold. Some swear that rubbing wheels with goose fat before a journey keeps them from cracking in frost. Others say it mostly attracts dogs. Your companion, The torn-eared scholar of all edible theories appears interested in testing this. The storehouse stands near the granary, built of thick timber on raised stones to discourage damp, rats, and hope. Its oak door is banded with iron, and when the steward unlocks it, the hinges complain like an old monk asked to dance. Inside, the air is colder than outside, but drier, holding the layered smell of cedar, straw, old wool, lavender, grain dust, mouse nests, and locked-away summers. Light enters through a narrow slit in the wall, falling across stacked chests, rolled mats, bundled ticking, sacks of feathers, and straw packed in twists. Here is where beds wait between lives. A servant lifts a mattress ticking from a shelf. It is empty now, folded flat, striped in faded blue and brown, with mended seams along one edge. In summer it might be stuffed fresh with clean straw from the harvest, sweet and golden. In winter, when fields sleep hard under frost and straw must feed animals, patch roofs, line boots, and serve more uses than any plant should be asked to manage. Old stuffing becomes precious. Nothing is wasted. Straw is shaken, sorted, dried near the hearth if possible, mixed with herbs if available, and put back into service with a confidence that would impress a bishop and worry a physician. You help open a sack. Inside lies old straw, pale and broken, smelling faintly of dust, lavender and mice. One servant plunges in both hands and begins picking through it, tossing aside clumps that are damp, dark, or too finely crushed. A second servant holds a basket for the usable pieces. The dog noses the rejected pile and is firmly told that he is not part of the inspection. Some swear that lavender in bedding keeps moths, fleas, bad dreams, and sorrow away. Others say sorrow has never been troubled by flowers. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the lavender truly guards the sleeper or simply makes poverty smell a little more patient. Still, the servants add it to the straw, along with a pinch of dried rosemary and southernwood. The scent rises gently, green and tired, softening the old dust. Near the back of the storehouse sit feather sacks tied with cord. One has been mouse-nibbled at the corner, and a scatter of white down has escaped onto the floor like fallen snow. The steward frowns. Feathers are valuable, and mice are not known for respecting household accounts. A servant patches the hole with rough linen while another shakes the sack, listening for movement. No one wants to open it fully unless forced. Opening feather bedding means chaos. Feathers cling to sleeves, hair, lips, rafters, and pride. A single torn sack can make a room look as though a very small blizzard lost a fight with a goose. You remember the market merchant lifting feathers into morning light, promising softness. Here, stored in the cold, they seem less heavenly and more vulnerable. Feathers must be aired or they sour. They must be kept dry or they clump. They must be guarded from mice, moths, damp, and the quiet corruption of being shut too long away from wind and sun. Later, in fashionable houses of another century, feather pillows and thick mattresses will rest beneath lace and patterned quilts, but their hidden needs will remain as humble as ever air: dryness, beating, turning, labour. A maid opens a chest of wool blankets. The smell of cedar rises strongly, along with lavender bundles tied in linen scraps. Cedar keeps insects away, or so many swear, though those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the insects flee the scent or merely wait in neighbouring furniture. The blankets are folded with care, patched, darned, and sorted by quality. The best are for honoured guests, the middle ones for household use, the worst for servants, dogs, emergency travellers, and anyone who arrives after rain with too little coin and too much need. The black blanket from the inn comes back to your mind, heavy with unnamed history. These blankets are better kept, but they're still old wool, still used by many, still dependent on weather and work. Winter makes every coverlet important. Cold can make suspicion seem fussy. A blanket with a stale smell is still a blessing when frost creeps under the door and the rushlight burns low. The steward orders one mattress prepared for a visiting reeve, delayed by the broken road. You watch the servants stuff the ticking slowly, shaking straw into the corners, pressing it flat, adding herbs, then more straw, then stitching the opening with thick thread. It is simple work only to those not doing it. The straw pricks fingers, dust catches in throats, the ticking resists shape. At last the mattress becomes a body of sorts, firm, uneven, and ready to pretend innocence beneath linen. The half-burned candle from the inn rests in your pouch as you carry one folded blanket back toward the hall. It taps your hip with each step, a small reminder of the many beds behind you, damp straw, shared wool, feather promises, monastery herbs, frozen laundry, red curtains, smoke cures, black blankets, bright cloth, floor pallets, and now this cold storehouse where sleep itself is assembled from scraps of harvest, animal, herb, labour, and hope. Outside, the frost shines brighter. The chapel bell rings once more. You cross the yard slowly, holding the blanket close, and for one breath it feels almost warm before it has warmed anyone at all. The blanket warms against your chest as you carry it back across the yard, though the warmth is only borrowed from your own body and will vanish the moment you lay it down. Frost cracks softly beneath your boots. The dog with the torn ear pads beside you, nose lifted toward the kitchen smoke, still hopeful that the world may yet prove edible. Behind you, the storehouse door closes with a heavy wooden sigh, shutting away the sacks of feathers, bundled ticking, lavender, cedar, mouse-nibbled corners, and all the patient materials from which winter sleep is made. By mid-morning, the manor releases you back onto the road. You leave with a heel of coarse bread, a strip of smoked fish wrapped in cloth, and the half-burned candle still tucked safely in your pouch. The road beyond the manor slopes past hedges, white with frost and fields, where crows step among frozen furrows like black-robed clerks inspecting poor accounts. Far ahead, a line of pilgrims moves slowly along the ridge, their cloaks dark against the pale sky, staffs tapping in uneven rhythm. You fall in behind them because company on a winter road is warmth of a kind, and because the dog has already decided the old woman at the rear may be persuaded to share crumbs. Near noon, the road bends toward a roadside shrine. It stands beneath an ash tree, small and weathered, with a wooden roof over a stone niche. Inside rests a painted figure of a saint, though rain, smoke, and time have made the face gentle in a way that might be holiness or simply lost detail. Around the shrine hang strips of cloth, beads, bent pins, threads, little wooden crosses, and pilgrim badges left by travellers who have asked for healing, safe passage, good harvests, easy childbirth, calm dreams, or at the very least a night without being eaten by whatever lives in the bedding. No one can quite agree which saint is meant to rule this place. Some say St. Julian, friend of travellers. Others say St. Blaise, because of the old badge nailed to the beam. A third pilgrim insists it is a local holy woman, who once slept on bare stones and woke each morning without complaint, which sounds less like sanctity and more like a back problem waiting to be canonized. Still, people stop. They bow their heads. They touch the stone. They leave what they can. You sit near the shrine wall and eat your bread slowly. A pilgrim beside you removes his boot and examines his ankle with tragic seriousness. Flea bites mark the skin in little red points. Not dreadful, not dramatic, only maddening in their humility. He has tied a blue thread above the sock line, and from it hangs a tiny scrap of parchment sealed in wax. He tells you it carries a blessing against night vermin. Some swear that blessed words frighten fleas, lice, bed bugs, and devils in equal measure. Others say fleas, being small and illiterate, may not appreciate the threat. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the charm protects the flesh, the spirit, or merely the patience of the person wearing it. The old woman at the rear of the pilgrim line kneels before the shrine and opens a cloth bundle. Inside are little objects gathered from the road, a hazel twig, a twist of red wool, a pinch of dried lavender, a sliver of beeswax, and a tiny pewter badge showing a scallop shell. She arranges them carefully on the shrine ledge, then murmurs a prayer for peaceful sleep. Her son, she says, wakes each night scratching until dawn, though his bed has been smoked with juniper, sprinkled with rue, and beaten so often the mattress may soon confess to crimes it did not commit. The dog sits beside her and receives a crumb. He looks deeply moved by her devotion. Around you, the pilgrims rest. One drinks thin ale from a leather flask, another unwraps a trencher of yesterday's bread soaked in onion broth. A third rubs goose grease into cracked heels and mutters that if you sleep with cold feet, your soul wanders looking for a hearth. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether souls are so easily distracted, but everyone agrees warm feet improve theology. A younger pilgrim tucks a bay leaf into his cap, saying it guards against bad dreams picked up in inns. His friend replies that the safest cure for in-dreams is to own a better inn. The shrinekeeper appears from a nearby cottage, stooped and wrapped in a fur-lined cloak gone thin at the edges. He tends the place, sweeps away dead leaves, trims the little lamp, and keeps a clay bowl for offerings. He sells blessed threads, wax tokens, and tiny linen packets filled with herbs. He does not claim too much. That is his genius. He says the packets may comfort the sleeper, they may sweeten a pillow, they may remind the saint to look kindly upon a bed. He never says they will defeat fleas, mites, lice, damp, sorrow, draughts, and old straw all at once. Even a holy salesman must fear disappointment. You buy nothing, but he gives you a short length of red thread for the dog's collar, saying animals carry luck on roads more honestly than men. The dog allows it, which is generous, considering he has not approved the theology. The red thread hangs crookedly against his wet fur. As the pilgrims rise, one tells a tale of a relic kept in a distant abbey, a scrap of a saint's blanket said to cure sleeplessness if touched to the pillow. Another says he heard the same relic cures fever. A third says it cures toothache. No one can quite agree whether this means the relic is powerful, confused, or advertised by monks with excellent imagination. You remember the suspicious monk, the clean cot, the bitter herbs under straw, and the way even holy houses must beat their blankets in the yard. Relics may soothe fear, but someone still has to wash the sheets. That is what the road keeps teaching you. Bedding troubles are never only bedding troubles. They become prayers, charms, customs, trades, gossip, cures, and little rituals performed at dusk by people who know the night is long. A flea bite is a tiny thing, yet it can steal sleep from a labourer who must rise before dawn. A damp blanket can turn winter cruel. A shared mattress can carry whispers of sickness. A feather pillow can hide dust until a child coughs. So people sew charms into seams, hang herbs from rafters, light beeswax before saints, knot threads, burn juniper, tie cloth to thorns, and ask heaven to help with what soap, sun, and tired hands cannot fully master. The pilgrims move on, their badges clicking softly. You follow the road as afternoon thins toward evening. The shrine shrinks behind you under the ash tree, its little lamp trembling in the cold. The dog trots ahead with red thread at his collar and crumb dust on his muzzle, looking, for once, almost blessed. The red thread on the dog's collar catches the last light as you follow the pilgrim road away from the shrine, a small bright mark moving through frost, mud, and the long blue shadow of evening. Behind you, the little lamp beneath the ash tree dwindles until it is no more than a trembling star caught low among branches. Ahead, the road descends toward a craft village gathered beside a narrow stream, where smoke hangs under the clouds and the steady knocking of tools carries through the cold. You arrive as the day's work should be ending, though work, like damp, often lingers where people are poor. A row of low workshops leans along the lane, a cooper's shed smelling of oak shavings, a cobbler's stall with strips of leather hanging from pegs, a dyer's yard where a dark vat steams with a smell that makes the dog reconsider his faith in humanity, and at the far end a timber building with its shutters half closed against the wind. From within comes the muffled thump of a rod striking cloth, again and again, slow and deliberate, like someone punishing a very soft criminal. The sign above the door shows a mattress, a needle, and a bundle of straw. You enter the upholsterer's workshop. The room is dim, lit by one horn-paned window, 2 tallow dips, and a hearth burning low beneath a kettle. Shadows cling to the rafters. The floor is covered not with rushes, but with the wreckage of beds, straw ends, wool fluff, feather wisps, broken threads, linen scraps, horsehair curls, and dust so old it seems to have earned citizenship. Several mattresses lie open on trestles like beasts under repair. Their ticking has been slit along the seams. Their stuffing spills out in pale brown. Grey and yellow heaps, each giving off its own private weather. The upholsterer is a broad-shouldered woman with arms corded from years of beating, lifting, stitching, and dragging other people's comfort into the light. Her hair is bound in a cloth, her apron is patched, and her hands move with the calm authority of someone who knows that every fine bed eventually becomes work for the unromantic. She looks you over, then the dog, then the red thread on his collar. Blessed is he possibly, you say. She nods, then keep him away from the feathers. No one can quite agree whether dogs love feathers because they smell of birds, mischief, or heaven's weakest pillows. But every craftsperson seems certain the result is disaster. At the nearest trestle, an apprentice beats a mattress with a wooden rod. Dust rises in thick clouds, turning gold in the candlelight. He pauses to cough into his sleeve, then begins again. The mattress is old straw and wool mixed together, the ticking stain darker at the edges where hands have gripped it for years. The upholsterer explains that bedding comes here when households can no longer pretend. Seams split, straw crushes flat, feathers clump, horsehair twists into lumps. Mice enter. Moths dine, fleas hold court, then after enough bad nights, someone remembers the upholsterer. She opens one mattress wider and shows you the layers within. Clean straw near the top, old chaff below, bits of lavender long gone grey, a twist of thread, a lost pin, and a small coin blackened with age. The apprentice finds it and grins. "Payment from the bed," he says. The upholsterer takes it. Rent for all the guests it kept. Some swear that placing a coin beneath a mattress draws wealth toward the sleeper. Others say it draws only bruises if the coin lies under the hip. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the person who lost this coin sought fortune, forgot it in sleep, or hid it from a spouse with better memory. Farther inside, another worker sorts horsehair, pulling it apart with iron combs. The hair resists, springing and tangling under his fingers. It must be cleaned, teased, aired, and sometimes mixed again with wool or straw. In good houses, horsehair gives firmness and dignity to a mattress. In bad houses, it gives every lump a sharp opinion. Nearby, a young girl stitches patches onto ticking with thick thread, pushing the needle through cloth stiffened by use. She rubs beeswax along the thread first so it slides more easily and resists damp. This little habit, humble as it is, may save a seam from splitting in the night. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the worst part of the work is the dust, the smell, or what people expect not to be found. The upholsterer says every bed lies twice, once when it is neatly covered, and once when its owner claims it has been recently cleaned. She has found crumbs, charms, mice nests, broken buttons, hairpins, old herbs, teeth from combs, pilgrimage tokens, and once a love letter sewn into a pillow, which caused more trouble than any flea in the parish. You think of the noble chamber, the red curtains, the steward's proud face, the maid's little grimace. You think of the black blanket folded on the inn chest, the monastery cot beaten in the yard, the laundress judging linen by the river, the peddler's cloth breathing dust. Here, everything hidden comes open. The workshop is the confession booth of bedding, though it offers fewer absolutions and more sneezing. A feather mattress waits near the hearth, its ticking loosened carefully. The upholsterer reaches inside and lifts a handful of down. It clings to her fingers, light as mist, soft as a saint's whisper, and faintly sour from being shut too long. She spreads it into a shallow basket so it can air by the fire, but not too close. Too much heat scorches, too little leaves damp. Comfort, you are learning, is a narrow bridge over many inconveniences. The dog sneezes at a drifting feather, then looks personally betrayed by softness. The upholsterer smiles without looking up. Soft things are the worst to keep honest. That may be the truest sentence you have heard all day. As night thickens outside, the tallow dips burn lower. The workers continue by habit. Beat, sort, comb, stitch, stuff, turn, tie. A mattress is not reborn quickly. It takes hands, rods, needles, cord, herbs, heat, air, and a willingness to see what polite households hide beneath linen. In later centuries, when beds grow taller, frames iron, mattresses deeper, rooms crowded with curtains and wallpaper, the same labour will remain. Respectable bedding will still need opening, cleaning, airing, restuffing, mending. Someone will still cough in the dust so someone else may sleep under a coverlet and call it civilised. At last, the upholsterer closes one mattress with firm, even stitches. It looks plain now, almost innocent. Tomorrow it will be carried to a house, covered with linen, praised by guests, and trusted by a tired body. You watch the seam disappear beneath her hand. Outside, the village bell sounds once. Inside, the dust slowly settles back into shadow. When the village bell finishes its single note, the upholsterer ties off her thread and rests both hands on the closed seam, as if quieting the mattress after its confession. The workshop has grown dim and brown around you, full of dust settling through candlelight, feathers clinging to rafters, and the slow smell of warmed horsehair, old straw, tallow smoke, and damp wool. Outside, night presses against the horn window. The dog with the torn ear lies under a trestle, red thread crooked at his collar, watching a feather drift down with a deep suspicion of a creature who has learned that softness often leads to sneezing. You're about to leave when a boy arrives at the door. He's breathless, mud up to his shins, cap twisted in his hand. He belongs to a house near the mill, he says, where his grandmother lies ill behind a curtain, and the bed has gone sour with damp. They need a clean cover, or at least one that can pretend well enough until morning. His voice is steady, but his fingers worry the edge of his cap. The upholsterer looks at him, then at the stitched mattress, then at a folded wool blanket near the hearth. No clean bed tonight, she says gently, but warmer than what she has. Maybe. She wraps the blanket in cloth, hands it to you because your arms are currently less occupied than your conscience, and sends you with the boy through the village lane. The mill cottage stands close to the stream, where cold mist gathers low and slips under doors like an unpaid guest. Its walls are timber and wattle, patched with clay. The thatch droops dark from the last rain. Inside, the room is small, smoky, and crowded with the furniture of daily survival, a table scarred by knives, a bench, a chest, a spinning distaff, drying herbs above the hearth, a hanging pot of barley pottage, and rushes on the floor that have been swept into neatness but cannot fully hide the smell of damp earth. A curtain hangs in the corner, and behind it the old woman breathes softly. The family speaks in whispers, as people do around illness, as if loud voices might frighten life away. A daughter tends the hearth. A little boy sleeps sitting against the wall, his head tipped forward, one hand still wrapped around a crust of bread. The miller, broad and pale with worry, takes the blanket from your arms and nods his thanks without meeting your eyes. No one can quite agree whether sickness enters a house through bad air, chilled feet, spoiled food, God's testing, unlucky stars, or a neighbour's glance held too long over the fence. Tonight, all explanations sit together in the smoke, and none brings much comfort. The daughter pulls back the curtain. The bed is low, boxed in by rough boards, with straw ticking beneath the old woman and linen sheets gone grey from use. A wool cover lies over her, damp at the edges where breath, sweat, spilled drink, and river-cold air have all taken turns. The room has been kept shut to hold warmth. The shutters are closed. The curtain has been drawn. Herbs have been hung. A bowl of vinegar sits beneath the bed. A sprig of rosemary is tied to the bedpost with red thread. Cousin to the little charm on the dog's collar. Some swear rosemary keeps memory strong and sickness weak. Others say it mostly makes a sad room smell as though someone has tried. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the old remedies guard the living, ease the dying, or simply give frightened hands a task. You help the miller lift the old blanket away. It comes slowly, heavy with damp, and the smell beneath it is not violent, only close and human stale linen, fever sweat, smoke, old straw, vinegar, and the sourness of a bed that has not seen open air. The daughter folds it carefully, because even a troubled blanket is still a blanket, and winter does not permit disgust to become wasteful. The upholsterer's warmer wool is laid over the old woman's knees. She stirs, murmurs something about bells, and her hand moves against the sheet. A village healer stands near the hearth, grinding dried sage, betony, and a little honey into warm ale. She says the drink may soothe the chest. She also places a warmed brick wrapped in cloth near the old woman's feet. Because cold feet are blamed for many journeys no one wishes the soul to take too soon. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether warmth at the feet holds a person more firmly in the world. But everyone watches the brick as if it has been given an important office. The curtain is drawn again, half closed this time, so some air may move. That is what frightens you most gently. The bed is trying to help and harm at once. The curtains hold warmth but trap breath. The sheet offers softness but carries the memory of fever. The blanket comforts one body, then must be handled by another. The straw beneath absorbs damp and scent. The pillow takes in cough, hair oil, tears, and whispered prayers. No bite, no stain, no breath looks important alone. Yet bedding gathers small things faithfully. Like a scribe with no judgment and too much patience. You think ahead to later centuries, to Victorian sick rooms with heavy drapes, upholstered chairs, thick mattresses, shared linens, closed windows against fog, and household confidence wrapped around invisible dangers. People will sprinkle carbolic, lavender, vinegar, or perfume. They will air rooms when they remember, burn bedding when fear becomes large enough, or tuck it away when money forbids waste. But here, in this mill cottage, the truth is already present. A bed is intimate. It knows the body too closely. It can comfort the weary and carry dread from one sleeper to another. The daughter changes the facecloth, dipping a clean corner of linen in warm water. Clean is a hopeful word. The cloth has been boiled once, dried near smoke, folded in a chest with lavender, and kept for times like this. She wipes her mother's brow with such care that the whole room grows softer around the gesture. The dog lies near the hearth, unusually still, his head on his paws. The half-burned candle from the inn sits in your pouch, but the cottage has only a small rushlight, its flame trembling in a cup of grease. Outside. The stream turns in the dark beside the mill wheel. Inside. The old woman's breathing steadies for a while. The miller sits on the bench, shoulders bowed. The healer murmurs that sleep is a mercy when it comes cleanly. No one answers. You sit near the wall, listening to the fire settle. The rushes shift, the curtain move with the faintest draught, and somewhere far off, perhaps from the Abbey Road, a bell touches the night. The bed behind the curtain creaks softly. Everyone listens. Then the old woman sighs, and the room lets out its breath with her. The room holds its breath with the old woman, and for a long while you sit beside the cottage wall, listening as the stream turns in darkness and the rushlight trembles in its little cup of grease. The new wool blanket rises and falls over her knees. The rosemary tied to the bedpost casts a thin, crooked shadow. Smoke stains the rafters above, and in the corner the curtain moves slightly whenever the door lets in a whisper of night air. No one can quite agree whether such small draughts heal or harm, whether they carry fresh mercy into a sick room or steal warmth from the bones. Tonight, the family chooses a little air and a little hope, which is often the only medicine people can afford after midnight. When the old woman sleeps more evenly, you rise. The miller presses a piece of coarse bread into your hand, though his own table is not rich. You take it because refusing kindness can bruise the giver. Outside, frost has hardened the lane, and stars show faintly between clouds. The village lies quiet, shutters closed, hearth smoke thinning into the cold. The dog with the torn ear steps beside you, red thread still crooked at his collar, carrying himself with the solemn importance of one who has visited a shrine, survived brimstone smoke, inspected noble bedding, and been fed by nearly everyone worth knowing. You follow the lane back toward the road, past the upholsterer's dark workshop. Through a crack in the shutter, a last candle glows. Perhaps the woman inside is finishing one more seam. Perhaps she has fallen asleep with needle in hand. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether craftsmen sleep better because they know how things are made, or worse because they know what hides inside them. You imagine the open mattresses resting in darkness, straw, feathers, wool, and horsehair waiting for new bodies, new warmth, new secrets. Farther on, the road bends toward the town where your journey began. Its walls rise ahead in the mist, low and dark under the moon. The gatehouse torch burns small. A watchman stamps his feet beside the oak doors, and when he lets you through, the hinges groan in a voice you remember. Inside, the streets are nearly empty. Mud has stiffened under frost. A shutter bangs once, then settles. Somewhere a baby cries and is hushed. Somewhere a drunk sings 2 lines of a song and wisely forgets the rest. The same dog, now very much your dog for the night, leads you toward the inn yard. The hall is quieter than before. The rushes have been changed in places, though old smells remain beneath new stalks like memories beneath fresh linen. The fire has burned low. A half-circle of travellers sleeps near the hearth, a merchant with his bundle for a pillow, a pilgrim with badges wrapped in cloth, a carter still muttering about a broken wheel that may or may not have been cursed by mud. The innkeeper nods at you from a bench, too tired to judge anyone deeply. She gives you a coverlet. It is not new, it is not noble, it is not white as Lent, nor perfumed enough to deceive a saint. It is a warm, faded thing, patched along one side with careful stitches, smelling of cedar chest, smoke, wool, and a faint trace of lavender. You hold it in both hands, and after all the beds you have known, you understand it differently. You do not ask whether it is perfectly clean. Perfection has not travelled this road. You ask whether it is dry, whether it is warm, whether it has been shaken, whether it will carry you through the last dark hours before dawn. Some swear that turning a blanket 3 times before lying down confuses fleas and wicked dreams alike. Others say it only delays sleep, which is wicked enough by itself. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the turning helps, but you turn it once anyway, slowly, almost ceremonially, because the road has taught you respect for small rituals. Then you settle near the hearth, where the stones still hold a little heat. The dog circles 3 times at your feet and lies down. The hall breathes. You pull the coverlet over your shoulders and gather the whole journey into its weight, the gatehouse straw whispering under you. The alehouse bed crowded with strangers, the market feathers drifting like pale warnings, the monastery cot with rue and lavender beneath, the laundresses beating linen in frozen river water, the noble chamber warm and stale behind red curtains, the doctor's bitter smoke, the black blanket in the rainy inn, the peddler's bright cloth breathing dust, the servants sleeping beneath benches and beside locked trunks, the winter storehouse with mouse-nibbled sacks, the shrine with blessed threads, the upholsterer opening seams, the sick-room curtain moving gently beside an old woman's bed. All of it rests here with you. The horrifying truth is not that beds are monsters. They are too ordinary for that. They are places of trust, and trust is what makes them frightening. You surrender to them when you are weakest, coldest, sickest, loneliest, most human. They hold your warmth, your breath, your hair, your sweat, your dreams, your fear, and sometimes the traces of those who came before. The medieval world knows this without needing fine instruments or learned books. It beats bedding in yards, hangs herbs from beams, whispers charms, airs linen in weak sun, and still climbs under wool when night grows cold. Beyond the walls, a bell marks the hour before dawn. The fire sighs, folding inward. The innkeeper banks the coals. The half-burned candle from your pouch rests beside you now, set upright in its little knob of wax. Though you do not light it, there is no need. The dark is gentle enough. The coverlet scratches your chin, but it is dry. The dog's warmth presses against your boots. Somewhere under the rushes, something tiny moves and then is still. You close your eyes. And this time, you do not pretend the bed is innocent. You only let it be warm. The hall grows softer around you, less like a place of smoke and tired feet, and more like a low, dim shelter held carefully inside the night. The last orange breath of the hearth moves beneath the ash, and the rafters above disappear into a darkness so deep and calm that even the old soot seems to sleep. You feel the coverlet settle over your shoulders. You feel the warmth gathered near your knees where the dog lies curled, his red thread hidden now beneath one folded ear. The bells are far away, slower than thought, and each note fades before the next one comes. Nothing needs to be solved now. The blankets have been shaken as well as they can be. The rushes have been spread. The candle waits unlit. The door is barred. The rain has passed, and the road, with all its mud and broken wheels and suspicious feathers, can remain outside until morning. You're only here, breathing quietly beneath rough wool, while the medieval town rests around you in layers of stone, timber, straw, smoke, and sleep. The old fears become small. A rustle is only a rustle. A draught is only cold air finding its way through an old wall. The bed is imperfect, but it is holding you. The night is imperfect, but it is passing gently. Somewhere, a monk will rise before dawn. Somewhere, a laundress will lift linen from cold water. Somewhere, a candle will be trimmed. A hearth will be stirred. A coverlet will be folded for another tired traveller. For now, you let the world grow dimmer. You let your hands loosen. You let the last bell fade, and under the warm, worn coverlet, in the quiet between smoke and morning, you drift softly down into sleep.